Nobody saw it coming. Not the actors nor the crew, and especially not Rasheeda. In what is now regarded as one of the most stunning moments in love and hip-hop history, cameras captured Kirk Frost in a violent outburst that surprised everyone and left Rasheeda in tears. The tape, which was released just hours earlier, has already spread like wildfire on social media, with fans demanding explanations and producers attempting to control the narrative. However, the harm may have already been done. It all happened on what was meant to be a typical filming day, just another scene between the longtime pair. But something snapped, voices were raised, accusations were flown, and then the moment that sent the internet into a frenzy. Kirk sprang at Rasheeda in a way no one expected from the guy she'd stood with for years. Now, viewers are wondering what happened behind the scenes. Was this a one-time outburst or a glimpse of something far darker? Rasheeda has not commented publicly, but insiders claim she is devastated and done. Meanwhile, VH1 insiders suggest that this controversy may imperil not only Kirk's career, but the whole franchise. Stay right there, because what we're about to disclose will have you stunned. Under the intense glare of the production lights, the Love and Hip Hop set was buzzing with the typical control chaos. Cameras in place, helpers racing around, makeup artists performing last-minute touch-ups. Kirk Frost strode onto the scene with a strained face, his mouth clenched as if fighting back a storm. Rasheeda sat in the corner, scrolling through her phone, attempting to seem calm, but anybody who knew her could see the emotions simmering just beneath the surface. The tension between them was cold, and the entire team sensed it. Something was odd. Something was about to shatter. What the audience didn't realize was that only seconds before the camera started filming, Kirk discovered texts on Reva's phone. They weren't provocative or scandalous, but they were private. She was venting to a buddy about Kirk's latest transgression. She had wrote, "I don't know how much longer I can pretend this marriage is fine." Kirk saw it. He didn't say anything. He merely proceeded to his designated spot on set and waited for the action to begin, but within he was seething. The sequence they were intending to film was intended to be easy, a discussion on their son's school predicament. But when the director called for action, Kirk couldn't fake it. Instead of keeping to the script, he went on a diatribe. "Is that how you truly feel? Pretending for the camera while pulling me behind my back?" His voice was low and piercing. Rasheeda looked up, surprised. This was not in the script. Not even close. "What are you talking about?" she inquired her, voice already breaking. "Your little messages. I saw everything." Kirk shouted, edging closer to her. The team paused, uncertain if this was traumatic acting or actual life unfolding before them. The tension was thick and the air seemed heavy. Rasheeda's eyes expanded. "Did you go through my phone?" "Don't act like you're innocent," Kirk said. "You've been making derogatory remarks about me while smiling in my face." "That is not true, Rasheeda. And I'm sick of false." At this time, the director attempted to cut the scene, signifying a pause, but Kirk refused to stop. His emotions had taken control. Rasheeda rose up, tears in her eyes, her voice trembling as she said, "I need to vent to someone, Kirk. I can't keep it all in anymore. You are never there. You lie. You're a cheat. I'm drowning." Those words pushed Kirk over the edge. He quickly raised his hand. Nobody expected what occurred next. His palm made contact with Rasheeda's cheek in what seemed like slow motion to everyone watching. The harsh smack rang around the studio. Gasps flooded the air. Someone dropped a clipboard. Rasheeda was transfixed. Astonished, her face turned away, one hand slowly raising to touch the point where he had smacked her. There was a split second of quiet. Then everything erupted. Crew members rushed forward. The assistant director yelled for security. One of the sound men hurried over to Rasheeda and gently guided her away. Kirk just stood there breathing heavily, his eyes wide as if he couldn't believe what he just accomplished. But it was finished. It was irreversible. The cameras continued rolling, not on purpose, but because of shock. The film was shot from several viewpoints. Kirk Frost, a longtime cast member, was caught on film beating his wife. Outside the set, word traveled rapidly. A crew member had already texted someone. "Something horrible has just happened." Kirk slapped Rasheeda on camera. And with that, the chain reaction began. Within minutes, social media took off. Rasheeda's name was already buzzing as she was led to her changing room. Fans were in amazement. Nobody wanted to trust what they heard. However, the words continued coming in. Everyone had a version of the story, and none of them portrayed Kirk favorably. Meanwhile, back in her dressing room, Rasheeda sat quietly. Her makeup spilled, and her cheeks were already crimson. She did not weep. Not anymore. The tears had dried up. Now there was just shock, betrayal, and a peculiar sensation of relief, as if something long concealed had finally emerged. She muttered to her stylist, "You really did it. He truly struck me in front of everyone." Outside the door, the producers were panicked. They were fighting on what to do. Some people wanted to halt the entire shoot. Others said they needed to issue a statement before the tape surfaced. But one thing was certain, this was not going to remain secret. Someone had previously videotaped it with their phone. Even though the network's cameras caught everything in good definition, the shaky phone film would be the first to be shared on the internet. Kirk had departed the set. No apologies. There's no explanation, just strode out, shoulders tense and face inscrutable. He did not speak to anyone, not even his manager. He just got into his car and drove away. The first footage became available online the next morning. Grainy, wobbly, yet recognizable. Kirk Frost slaps Rasheeda. The responses were quick. Fans were upset. People urged for him to be fired, jailed, or canceled. Celebrities began speaking up. One rapper tweeted, "No excuses, no apologies, just disgusting." An R&B singer wrote, "I grew up watching them. Now I'm heartbroken." Even Mona Scott, the show's executive producer, couldn't remain silent. She issued a cryptic but obvious message. "Violence has no place in our production. Decisions are being made." Rumors circulated that Kirk had been suspended indefinitely. Others stated that VH1 was considering removing the entire season. Rasheeda remained silent during it all. However, the stillness did not stay long. Hours later, she shared a single photograph on Instagram, a black screen. There's no caption. Her supporters, however, swamped the comment section with their support. "We love you. Leave him. You deserve better." The love poured in, and with it came the pressure for her to speak, to tell her side of the tale. What the rest of the world didn't know was that Rasheeda was fighting a battle of emotions on the inside. Humiliation, rage, heartbreak, confusion. She wasn't sure if she wanted to stay married or pursue charges. All she knew was that everything had changed, not just for herself, but also for others around her. And this was only the beginning, because what happened on that scene was only one part of a much bigger, far darker narrative that had been simmering behind closed doors for years. There was no going back now that the truth had been revealed to everyone. The world had witnessed Kirk Frost's furious outburst. The consequences had only barely begun. The stillness following the storm did not stay long. While the world waited for Rasheeda to speak, the harm was far more extensive than anybody imagined. Kirk's smack didn't only bruise her cheek. It ruined years of trust, devotion, and tacit agreement. People have previously seen them fight on camera. They have witnessed them enduring infidelity scandals, emotional breakdowns, and unending gossip. But this was different. This wasn't simply drama for television. This was raw brutality filmed in real time, and it could not be ignored. Rasheeda sat alone in her house. Her team advised her to avoid social media, the press, and to take time to recuperate. But healing was not arriving. Instead, memories came pouring back. All the time she had forgiven, justified, and protected Kirk, even though she knew he didn't deserve it. It seemed as if the entire world had suddenly discovered what she had been hidden for years. This made it all the more agonizing. Her phone buzzed continuously. Messages from friends, family, and castmates. Everyone had something to say. Some people were checking in. Others were astonished. However, too few people confessed that they were not shocked. One comment from a fellow cast member said, "We've seen the indications for years. It was only a question of time." Rasheeda gazed at the writing for several minutes. Time. How long had she waited for things to improve? How many times had she told herself that love meant staying? Kirk was keeping a low profile around town. "I'm locked up in a friend's condo away from the cameras and the mayhem." He had not phoned Rasheeda. Hadn't apologized. Instead, he continued rehearsing the incident in his memory, attempting to excuse it and transform it into a reaction rather than an assault. He convinced himself she had provoked him. She pushed too far, that it was simply an error. No matter how many times he attempted to reframe it, the fact remained evident. He crossed an uncrossable line. His telephone rang. It was Monica Scott. He didn't respond. It rang again. Then came a text saying, "We need to talk. This is serious." Kirk placed the phone down and paced the room. He knew the network was outraged. He was aware that the tape would be scrutinized, legal teams would be brought in, and statements would be prepared. He was also aware that his reputation, or what remained of it, was rapidly deteriorating. Meanwhile, the internet went into overdrive. Fans pulled up previous videos of Kirk denigrating Rasheeda. They evaluated his body language, tone, and previous arguments. The hashtags #justice for Rasheeda and #FirePerkfrost trended for hours. Even news sites covered the event, calling it a reality television scandal turned real-life tragedy. Panelists argued whether VH1 should cancel his contract. Insiders told podcast hosts that this wasn't Kirk's first time acting aggressively off camera. In the middle of it all, one character discreetly entered the spotlight. Rasheeda's mother. She was known for her intense protection of her daughter, and she did not mince words. During an unexpected live session, she talked with passion in her eyes. I warned her years ago that you cannot build love on grief. And now look, he placed his hands on her. There's no going back from that. Her statements reverberated over social media like a battle cry. Fans rallied around her, applauding her bravery and describing her as the voice for CA needed right now. Rasheeda watched the video in quiet. It brought tears to her eyes not because of what her mother had said, but because she knew it was true. She had ignored the warnings, gut instincts, and restless nights. All for what? A marriage that had turned into a prison. A companion who became a stranger. However, she remained hesitant. Deep down, a part of her refused to give up. Perhaps it was love. Perhaps it was dread. Or perhaps after all those years of protecting Kirk, she didn't know who she was without him. The next day, the network issued a statement. It stated, VH1 is aware of the incident involving Kirk and Rasheeda Frost. We condemn all forms of violence. Steps are being made to safeguard our cast's safety and well-being. It was ambiguous, safe, corporate. However, supporters were not happy. They wanted action. They requested that Kirk be removed permanently. Sponsors began removing advertisements from the broadcast. The executives were in crisis mode. Despite the tempest, Kirk eventually broke his quiet, not with an apology, but with a mediocre video put on his story. People only see what the cameras show, he explained, his voice exhausted and defensive. There are two sides to every story. Things got out of hand. I regret what occurred. I love my wife. I never intended to hurt her, but the harm was done. Comments poured in, most of them outraged. You didn't apologize. One fan commented, you were simply trying to preserve face. Another person added, we saw the smack. We saw the dread. Please don't gaslight us. Rasheeda did not answer. Not publicly, but in secret, she was preparing. Her team had called an attorney, not to sue Kirk, but to consider her choices. Divorce was on the table. So, I decided to leave the program totally. She was bored of performing. I am weary of faking, weary of carrying a narrative that had turned into a nightmare. But as the days progressed, another twist appeared. Raw and unedited footage from before the Slack was leaked. Kirk was seen pacing, aggressively backstage, mumbling under his breath and saying things like, I'm done playing the good guy and she's going to learn today. The disclosure verified supporters' fears. The smack was more than simply in the heat of the moment. It was premeditated. He was already on a downward spiral when the cameras grabbed him. This realization changed everything. Even those who attempted to support Kirk backed down. Fellow cast members began to distance themselves. Producers started re-editing episodes to reduce his appearance. Rumors circulated that he would be totally cut out of future tales. Throughout it all, Rasheeda stayed fairly silent. However, her strength began to manifest in unexpected ways. She shared photos of her children happy. She broadcast live from her business, joking with staff. She did not mention Kirk once, but her message was apparent. She was not broken. Not this time. Still, questions remained. Will she return to the show? Will she confront Kirk publicly? Or would she eventually go away for good? The world waited, watched, and speculated. Kirk, once a key player in love and hip-hop, now finds himself lonely, rejected, and wondering whether his empire will survive the aftermath. And this was only the beginning. As the dust settled, Rasheeda's stillness became more audible. Every post she made without Kirk in the frame was seen as a statement. Every grin without him became a sign of survival. But beneath those fleeting flashes of fortitude was a woman still dealing with the betrayal of a lifetime. Fans praised her strength, but they didn't witness the evening she grieved alone. The times she questioned every move, or the times she almost caught him, only to stop herself. Meanwhile, Kirk's position was unraveling faster than he could handle. The network has suspended any filming with him. Brands that had previously sponsored him started pulling back. Even several of his long-term business partners made subtle noises about re-evaluating their relationship with him. Kirk was being wiped piece by piece, and no one came to his defense publicly. But what stunned Kirk the most was not the business losses or the media blast. Rasheeda was silent. He had anticipated her to strike out, maybe going live and screaming his name into the emptiness. However, she didn't. They moved on. That felt terrible. It made him understand she was no longer upset. She was done. But Kirk couldn't let go that lightly. In a last-ditch effort to influence the narrative, he contacted one of the show's producers and requested a sit-down portion. "I need to tell my side," he said. "Let me explain before they cancel me permanently." The producer hesitated. There were hazards. However, drama was money. And Kirk, desperate, raw, and rejected, was drama gold. A few days later, cameras were rolling again, this time in a closed studio. Kirk sat beneath the lights, perspiration pouring on his forehead. His voice broke as he started. "I grew up in a chaotic environment," he remarked. "I never seen a good relationship. Perhaps this explains why I make so many mistakes. Maybe it is why I messed up with Rasheeda." He cleaned his face, but I never imagined it would go this far. The footage was intended to be damage control. Instead, it started another fire. The audience saw through his words. They termed it performative, manipulative. Another attempt to avoid accountability. Clips from the interview went viral, but not in the way Kirk anticipated. One admirer said, "He isn't apologetic for what he done. He's sorry he was caught." At the same moment, a new voice entered the storm, one no one expected. Kirk's eldest daughter from a previous relationship shared a puzzling story. "He's been like this. You're only finding out now." It was like unlocking the floodgates. Other relatives, former acquaintances, and even an old flame came forward, revealing years of mental instability, control difficulties, and poisonous conduct that had been kept concealed behind cameras for far too long. Rasheeda seen from a distance. Every new discovery seemed like a piece of a puzzle that she hadn't aware was being assembled. Things started to make sense. The subtle manipulation, the gaslighting, and the way Kirk always found a way to shift blame. For years, she bore shame that was not her own. Now she was putting it down piece by piece. Even as Kirk's image faded, several on the show attempted to capitalize on the event. Producers convened a covered gathering to explore twisting the drama into a special episode. What's the idea? Bring Rasheeda and Kirk face to face for a televised confrontation. The ratings would be huge. The buzz is irrepressible. However, there was one problem. Rasheeda refused to participate. Her team immediately denied the request. She wasn't prepared. She was not interested in giving Kirk a chance for atonement. However, the producers did not back down. They contacted me again, this time with an offer, creative autonomy, full editing rights, and a large payment. Rasheeda was torn. On the one hand, she wanted to maintain her calm. On the other hand, she realized this could be her final chapter, a chance to conclude the narrative on her terms. After days of deliberation, she said yes. But there was one condition. Kirk would not know she had consented until the cameras were rolling. When the day of filming occurred, Kirk entered the set expecting a solo segment. He practiced lines in his brain, attempting to seem weak, sorry, and repentant. But when he saw Rasheeda seated across from him, calm and cool, his lips dried up. She did not smile. She did not meet him. She just waited. The cameras began rolling. Kirk attempted to speak first, but Rasheeda raised her hand. "No," she said gently. "You said enough. You are now listening." The studio went quiet. "I gave you everything," she said, her voice firm. "My love, loyalty, and patience. Even if you did not earn it, I stayed. I battled for us. And what did you do? You made me appear foolish. You harmed me more than once." Over and over again, Kirk bowed his head. And suddenly, the entire world saw what I've been dealing with. You still couldn't accept genuine responsibility. You played the victim. You made excuses. Kirk attempted to intervene. "I was hurting too." "No," she interjected. "You can't injure me and then complain about your own misery. That is not love. That's control. I'm done with it." Kirk's eyes welled up with tears, but Rasheeda did not break. "You don't get to dictate my story anymore. I do. And this," she gestured around the set. "It's closure. Not for you, for me." Kirk was astonished. For the first time in years, he was speechless. The footage from that shot was never shown in its entirety. Only a few snippets were published, including Rasheeda's statements and Kirk's replies. However, even these excerpts sent shockwaves across the fan base. People applauded Rasheeda for her strength. They named her a role model. Women throughout the country shared experiences of their personal breakups and moments of recovering control. Kirk, for his part, went silent again. His team released a last statement. Kirk Frost will be stepping away from the public eye to focus on personal growth and healing. That sounded like a farewell. Perhaps it was. However, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. Even still, more mysteries remained to be revealed. Kirk's statement had been issued, but the consequences of his quiet were far from done. Although the public had been given closure, those closest to him recognized that nothing was actually settled. He had vanished from the spotlight, yet the murmurs persisted. Behind closed doors, Kirk's family was in disarray. His children, notably his eldest, were entangled in the wreckage. While some sympathized with their father's difficulties, others were more direct in their assessment, especially after seeing how Rasheeda emerged so powerful. Kirk's background was beginning to weigh heavily on him. He was no longer merely a man whose public image was being scrutinized. The true impact was on his family. His eldest daughter tweeted a mysterious comment that said, "This ain't just about Kirk and Rasheeda anymore. It's about a broken family and how we pick up the pieces." The mysterious message drew a deluge of responses. Some fans expressed worry for the kids, while others used the opportunity to attack Kirk's parenting. They insisted that he accept responsibility for the years of anguish his family had suffered. The drama was not finished. The press had learned of an explosive rumor. Someone in Kirk's close circle had leaked a stunning narrative. Kirk had supposedly been involved in a series of secret meetings with another reality celebrity who had previously been extremely close to the program. The facts were hazy, but the inference was clear. Kirk was planning a huge return. He wasn't finished fighting for his spot on Love and Hip Hop just yet. The story spread like wildfire, thrusting Kirk back into the public limelight. This time, it wasn't with a sincere apology or a reflection on personal progress. No, this was a frantic attempt to restore what he believed he had lost. Runs circulated that he was collaborating with a former producer who had been kicked off the program a few seasons prior. They were apparently developing a new, far darker tale that would portray Kirk in an entirely different way. However, Kirk had already suffered the consequences. Even when the murmurs became louder and he attempted to negotiate a return, no one believed in his salvation. He was the story's villain, and reality television rarely gives antagonists a second shot. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's life was taking an entirely opposite direction. Following the clash on the show, she began getting offers from various businesses that had previously distanced themselves from her. Her social media presence skyrocketed. She began to open up about her own journey, her climb in the profession, her personal hardships, and how she had finally learned to prioritize herself. People rallied around her. Her fan base was rising by the day, and with it came a sense of emancipation she hadn't experienced in years. Not only were people paying attention, but other celebrities also began to offer their support. Several celebrities personally reached out to Rasheeda, expressing their condolences, support, and friendship. Some even commented on how amazing it was to watch her not just survive, but thrive despite everything she had gone through. The floodgates had opened. People began to see her as more than simply a reality television star, but as a woman who had been through enough adversity to create her own tale of survival. Behind the scenes, however, she was fighting her own struggles. Rita was being pushed in a variety of directions, deals, media appearances, and family duties. She was exhausted. There were days when she just wanted to block out the noise. However, she didn't. She could not. Not after everything she'd gone through. She was no longer the lady who sobbed quietly, hoping her husband would change. She was someone different now, someone stronger. However, even as she reclaimed her strength, she had periods of weakness. She questioned if Kirk would ever genuinely confront the repercussions of his actions. There were times when she wondered if she was strong enough to handle the weight of her own news story. In the weeks following the public conflict, whispers regarding Kirk's prospective return to the program grew. There were rumors that the producers were considering him for a spin-off series centered only on his redemption arc. Kirk's team was reportedly in talks with the network, pushing the idea that his story was far from over. Rasheeda wasn't having it. She made it clear to her management and the network that if Kirk returned in any meaningful fashion, she was done. I'll walk away before I let him drag me back into that toxic mess," she declared in a private meeting with her staff. Her choice was not only about Kirk, however, it was about her own well-being. And for the first time in a long time, she was making decisions for herself. But Kirk did not give up that easily. In an attempt to soften his image, he went public with the social media message in which he addressed Rasheeda personally. "I am aware that I made a mistake. I know I've harmed you, but if there's even a slim chance of rebuilding what we had, I'll do whatever it takes." He added, "You mean more to me than anything, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make things right." But Rasha, she did not react. She did not even acknowledge the post. Kirk's statements seemed like another effort to alter the story to her, another round of unfulfilled promises. She had learned the hard way that words were meaningless. Actions were what counted. Just as everything appeared to be calming down, a fresh bombshell landed. A close friend of Kirk's, who had been at his side throughout the controversy, confessed that Kirk had been seeing someone else the whole time he was married to Rasheeda. The discovery shocked an already torn community. Fans were heartbroken. Many of them were unable to believe it. Kirk found the weight of the reality crushing. He attempted to restore what remained of his public image, but it was too late. Every lie, every treachery had eventually come up with him. He couldn't escape his history anymore. Kirk's life continued to collapse, and the media maelstrom got increasingly severe. His attempt to improve his public image had failed horribly, and now his personal life was exposed for all to see. The disclosure of his affairs sent shock waves across the entertainment industry, prompting others to doubt if he was actually capable of change. Fans who had previously supported him turned on him, calling him a liar, a manipulator, and a coward. His social media accounts were inundated with scathing comments, and even his most ardent admirers began to doubt if he deserved another opportunity. Following the crisis, Kirk's attempts to rebuild his marriage appeared useless. He tried to contact Braca several times, bringing flowers, writing lengthy, contrite letters, and even showing up abruptly at her house. However, Rasheeda declined to meet with him each time. She heard all of his apologies before, and this time they seemed empty. She had finally accepted the truth that Kirk was incapable of providing the kind of dedication she needed. She had created a new life for herself, one without his noxious presence. Rasha's resolve to remove Kirk out of her life was reinforced when she received help from an unexpected source. Her mother, who had always been wary of Kirk, sat down with her daughter and told her the hard truth. "You've gone through enough, baby. No man is worth this misery. He's revealed you who he truly is." Her statements served as a wake-up call for Rasheeda. She didn't need Kirk's apologies or pledges. She required peace, power, and independence. Kirk's public image deteriorated as his reconciliation efforts became increasingly desperate. The reality television industry, which had previously adored his drama-filled plot, now rejects him. The producers of Love and Hip Hop stated that Kirk will no longer be included on the show in any major capacity. His demise was complete, and he was left scurrying to pick up the pieces of his broken career. Despite this, Kirk's crew continued to pursue his comeback strategy. A new series was said to be in the works, a documentary-style show following his road of salvation. The proposal sounded too good to be true, and many regarded it as just another premeditated attempt to profit off his mistakes. Kirk's staff stressed that it wasn't just about generating money. It was about proving to the world that he could change, that he could finally be the guy he claimed to be. However, the fact was clear. His fall from grace had been too rapid, and the world was no longer interested in his sob tale. While Kirk's career was struggling, Rasheeda was thriving. Her commercial initiatives were successful, and she was sought after for high-profile partnerships. She had become a symbol of perseverance, a woman who had overcome a bad relationship to emerge stronger than ever. Her tale touched millions of admirers, many of whom had encountered similar challenges in their own lives. Rasheeda uses her platform to encourage others by sharing her story of self-love, independence, and empowerment. She became a light of hope for women who had been in violent relationships, demonstrating how they could rebuild their lives and recover their power. Meanwhile, Kirk, the franchise's former face, became a forgotten relic of a bygone age. His social media following diminished as public interest in him faded. His efforts to remain current appeared increasingly pitiful as he clung to the past with each post and public remark. His once promising career had become a cautionary story, a warning of how fast stardom can fade when trust and commitment are violated. Kirk shared a video on social media in a last-ditch effort to save his reputation. It was honest, passionate, and filled with remorse. He recognized his sins, acknowledged the anguish he had caused Rasheeda, and promised to do better. However, once again, his remarks fell flat. His admirers had seen this side of him too many times and were no longer buying it. The video elicited both sympathy and cynicism. Some supporters were disappointed while others simply moved on, losing interest in his narrative. Kirk had to swallow a harsh pill. The fact was that no matter how many times he apologized or pledged to change, his actions spoke louder than his words. The trust he had destroyed with Rita and their family could never be entirely restored. He had lost not just his marriage, but also his profession, reputation, and status on reality television. Rasheeda, on the other hand, was on the go. We are stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. She proceeded to rise above the situation, putting Kirk and his falsehoods behind her. The media frenzy around their failing marriage ultimately subsided to be replaced by fresh controversies and faces on reality television. But Rasheeda had learned a vital lesson. Never settle for less than you deserve. The lesson for Kirk was as harsh. Deeds speak louder than words, and atonement is not always possible. In the end, Kirk's violent outburst at Rasheeda was only one chapter in a much broader saga of treachery, public humiliation, and the demise of a once prominent reality television star. As the dust settled, one thing became clear. While Kirk got his moment in the spotlight, it was Rita who emerged victorious. She had seized charge of her story,